Story 1, kidnapped on a business trip, but the bad guys totally botched it. A few decades back, I was on a long work trip in the wilds of South America. I'm a hired gun in the oil industry, a consultant for geological and drilling ops. My job sends me to the middle of nowhere to fix clients' messes, often on short notice. I've racked up a ridiculous number of frequent flyer miles, enough to always fly business class without ever paying a dime. One day, I get an email saying I'm needed in the capital of a South American country, let's call it redacted to keep things vague. It's more famous for exporting plants than oil. The gig? Sort out deep drilling chaos, lost mud circulation, broken drill pipes, cavernous formations, you name it. Oh, and rebels were shooting up water lines, equipment was failing, and night shift workers were getting kidnapped for ransom. Just another day at the office. I fly into the capital for a meeting with the oil company execs who hired me as their lead geologist. Despite the city's rep for political brawls and my hotel being surrounded by armed guards, I spent a few pleasant weeks strolling around. I didn't care about the local drama, my focus was work. The company HQ was a short walk from my hotel, so I'd head out at dawn, wander the quiet streets, and chat with M16 toting security guys outside a rival oil firm. I found a killer cafe serving throat-scorching breakfast burritos and got hooked on a local booze called Pisco mixed with lime soda, sold on every corner. I'd roll into the office early, breeze through security, pat-downs, metal detectors, and petting bomb-sniffing German shepherds, grab a coffee, and have a solution ready before the morning meeting. Most days, I worked in my office, broke for a 2-hour lunch delivery, and headed back to the hotel around 5 p.m. But one day, a major issue at the site kept us on a conference call until 6 p.m. exhausted. We all headed out together. In the elevator, a local boss apologized for the late meeting and offered me a ride to the hotel. Nah, I'm good, I said. I walk every day. Need to stretch after that lunch. He looked horrified. Too dangerous for a foreigner to walk alone. I laughed it off, 2 weeks of daily walks, no issues, met some cool locals. Then he asked, what about your driver? I'm like, what driver? He dragged me back to the office, convinced I'd lost my mind. Apparently, walking solo was nuts. He called one of his drivers, and 30 minutes later, a bulletproof Toyota Land Cruiser with 4 cm thick windows rolled up. He insisted I only use company vehicles with their logo from now on. Fine, he's the boss. I climbed into this mini tank, and for 45 minutes, we weaved through chaotic traffic. No one followed road signs, half the traffic lights were dead, and a broken horn was a death sentence. I thought we'd flip on every turn. Walking felt safer, but I was stuck with the armored ride from then on. The job was a nightmare, logistics, geology, drilling, you name it. I took charge, ordered $3.6 million in equipment from Cameron Ironworks in Houston, and pulled strings with transport companies to get supplies into the jungle. The local team wasn't lazy or incompetent, but getting them to decide anything was like pulling teeth from a pterodactyl. I spent too much money, drank too much coffee, and worked too many hours, but in 3 weeks, I fixed issues that could have taken them 3 years. My motto? Easier to ask forgiveness than permission. One night, hyped on caffeine, I realized it was 12:30 a.m. The office was dark, everyone gone. Time to head out. I grabbed my field case, a big suitcase for last-minute site visits, and spotted a beat-up Land Cruiser with the company sticker idling in the lot. I tapped the window. Hey, you with, company name? 2 guys sized me up, muttered in rapid Spanish, and said, yeah, we were told to wait for you. Hop in. I gave them my hotel name, and we peeled out in a cloud of blue smoke. Typical drivers, I thought. But 25 to 30 minutes later, I noticed we weren't heading to the hotel. We were leaving the city. Guys, sure this is the way? The smaller guy grinned at his buddy, then turned to me. Sorry, senor, we're not going to the hotel. You're our prisoner now. You'll fetch a nice ransom for our cause. He flashed a sharpened machete. The driver showed off a rusty .32 caliber revolver. Message received. This wasn't my first rodeo. In Nigeria, they nabbed me, a geophysicist, guards, drivers, and a Land Cruiser. We all got out fine, though the cruiser vanished. In Moscow, I woke up to tanks rolling down the street. My buddy just said, close the curtains, idiot. In Azerbaijan, my hotel got shelled by an Armenian group, or so they said, right after a 32-hour trip. We were in the bar, so just ringing ears. In Iraq, an entire city I was in got taken hostage. Fun until the gin, lime, and ice ran out. Coalition forces bailed us out with a fireworks show. So, I leaned back and thought, enjoy the ride, old man. Alright, no harm intended, just business, I said. Since we're stuck together, what are your names? Kinda awkward to call you Kidnapper 1 and 2. After some heated Spanish, the small guy said, I'm Carlos, he's Stefan. Obviously fake, but whatever. I shook their hands, which threw them off. You're not scared? Carlos asked. Nah, you're just guys with a goal. I've been in worse. I know the drill, stay cool, no trouble. But if you want, I can raise hell, and we all end up bleeding in a ditch. I'm a big guy, 6 feet 3 inches, 275 to 290 pounds depending on the season in proximity to a pub, white beard, love giant cigars. Carlos was maybe 5 feet 4 inches, 130 pounds, Stefan was stocky, 220 pounds, but shorter. Their machete and revolver leveled the playing field, though. I'd been shot once before in South America, not keen to repeat it. We struck a deal, I'd behave if they treated me well. Handshakes sealed it. After an hour driving through pitch-black countryside, we pulled up to a ramshackle hideout, corrugated metal and tar paper in the middle of nowhere. I stretched, sore and tired, and said, I need a drink, a smoke, and a piss, not necessarily in that order. They laughed, pointed me to a windy outhouse, and I faked bad Spanish to keep my fluency under wraps. Back at the hideout, I asked for a drink. Water's over there, Carlos said. Water? This is an adventure. We got a toast. They scrounged up some aguardiente, beer, and guaro. I'll take all of it, I joked. As dawn broke, they were fading, sleepless night, crime jitters, and trying to keep up with a Wisconsin geologist who spent 8 months in eastern Siberia. I lit a cigar, offered them one, they declined, looking queasy, and kept the drinks flowing. They wanted me to call my office for ransom, but I played dumb. Hungover and frazzled, they decided it was too risky to call yet. Instead, they had me write a ransom note for $10,000, to be delivered anonymously. I signed it and handed it off to their courier. Hey, while you're in town, grab more beer, pisco, and some local cigars. I'll cover it 12 bottles minimum. I gave him $250 and a shopping list. They grumbled but agreed better to keep the big gringo happy, especially since I was paying. I pulled a flask of homemade Siberian moonshine, 80% proof, from my case. Try this Russian rocket fuel. I poured hefty shots, toasted to new friends, and refilled their glasses. They struggled through 2 more toasts, turning pickle green. Go sleep it off, I said. They staggered off, and I roamed the compound with my flask and cigars, under watch by other gang members. Then I smelled amazing food. I peeked into a shack and saw a hefty grandma stirring a giant pot. Starving, I introduced myself. She insisted on feeding me rustic, spicy stew with mystery meat, homemade bread, fried bananas, and a weak local brew. I ate like a king, she beamed, saying even her sons couldn't match me. The courier returned with my haul, a carload of beer, liquor, and cigars. I misjudged the exchange rate. I tipped Grandma $100 for her hospitality, shared cigars with the armed locals, and offered her first pick of the booze. She asked why I was there. I explained my situation, mentioning Stefan and Carlos, really Jose and Juan, her sons. She erupted, cursing them out in Spanish and smacking them with a spoon. Idiots. Criminals. You shamed our family. I leaned against the car, sipping moonshine, smoking, and enjoying the show. Jose and Juan apologized profusely, begging me not to call the cops. I agreed, but pointed at the car full of booze and cigars. I can't leave yet, let's throw a fiesta. Everyone loved the idea. I partied until 3 a.m., crashed at Grandma's, and woke up with a brutal hangover. Jose and Juan, humiliated and hungover, drove me back to the hotel in silence. I asked for their address, not for the cops, but to send a Christmas package from Houston. They gave it to me, relieved when I promised no trouble if they never pulled this stunt again. We're still pals. The ransom note? It went to the wrong oil company. My boss thought I just took a long weekend. My contract lets me work however I want. Another company tipped off the police, who launched a manhunt while I slept in my hotel. They didn't find me but rounded up plenty of lost gringos in local bars. On to the next tale. Story 2, I didn't cook the guy who stole my bathtub. Barely. Back when I was a greenhorn geologist fresh out of college, I went on a mandatory summer field course, 6 weeks of hands-on geology training in the wilderness, the final step before my bachelor's degree. We were a tough bunch, camping in tents with campfires and pit toilets, no dorms or hostels. Our base was in Idaho's primitive area, a 4.5 million acre chunk of nowhere with no towns, roads, or stores, just rugged mountains, wild rivers, a couple of glaciers, and elevations from high to stupid high. Perfect for geologists. We set up camp near an abandoned copper mine, surrounded by old mining gear. Fresh water came from icy streams fed by a glacier 2.5 miles up the canyon. No electricity, but plenty of natural gas thanks to our bean, sausage, and beer diet. About 30 of us cleared the site rocks, roots, rattlesnakes to pitch tents, dig latrines, one in an old fluorite mine shaft, and stockpile logs for fires and seating. Bathing was tricky. The glacier water was freezing, and even tough guys like us didn't want hypothermia. After a week, we reeked like gym bags left in a hot car. But we were budding scientists, so someone had a genius idea: repurpose an older cart from the mine, prop it on stone pillars by the creek, hide it with bushes, and pipe in water from the stream using old ventilation tubes. Voila, a makeshift bathtub. Problem was, it was still ice cold. But if someone hauled wood and lit a fire under it, the water could warm up enough to scrub off the stink. We had occasional recon days, basically days off to catch up on project issues. My team, a mix of quirky specialists, knocked out our tasks early one recon day and returned to camp by lunch to chill. Out came whiskey and beer, and we lit the fire early, swapping dubious stories on log benches. Feeling grimy, I grabbed a six-pack and headed to the bathtub. Our engineering worked great. I redirected the pipe, filled the cart, and kept a small fire going to take the edge off the glacial chill. I scrounged more wood and returned to find a teammate, nicknamed 2 Beers for his low alcohol tolerance, lounging in my barely warm bath, sipping my beer. 2 beers? What the hell? I set this up for me. He shrugged. I need to wash too. Use it after me. Toss some wood on the fire, and I'll tend it later. I argued, but he whined about his kitchen duty, which was actually the next day. Grumbling, I let it slide, team spirit, whatever. I gathered more branches, stoked the fire, and soon had a solid blaze going. 2 Beers, now sipping another of my beers, launched in water that was finally above single digits. What's for dinner, 2 Beers? I asked. Dunno, we'll see, he mumbled, forgetting his duty. Annoyed, I stepped away, plodding. You know that old tale about a frog jumping out of boiling water but staying put if you heat it slowly? 2 Beers was about to be my frog. Most of our firewood was oak, burned steady but hard to ignite. The rest was cedar, full of resin, which catches fast and burns hot. I returned with a massive pile of prime cedar and saw 2 Beers dozing in the cozy bath. I dumped the cedar into the fire like I was stoking a battleship boiler, grabbed a cold beer from the creek, spiked it with whiskey, lit a cheap cigarette, and settled in for the show. I kept tossing cedar to keep the flames roaring, adding a few oak logs for later. About 30 minutes and half a cubic yard of cedar later, a blood-curdling scream erupted. I'm burning. It's hot. Hot. 2 Beers launched out of the tub, sprinted across rocks and gravel, and dove into the icy creek. Now I'm freezing. Cold. The whole camp rushed over to see 2 Beers, buck naked and lobster red, standing on a gravel bar, yelling about burning and freezing. I drained the scalding water, refilled the tub, and had a glorious soak. The camp got a legendary story for future fireside chats. What do you think of these tales? Drop your thoughts in the comments, check out our last video, link placeholder, and thanks for sticking around. Stay awesome.